Well, the former head of the US National Security Agency is warning that China is using Australia's new change in government to help improve the perception of Beijing, while also continuing a steady cyber interference behind the scenes. Joining me live now is Admiral Mike Rogers. Thanks so much for your time,
Hello,
Michael.
Laura.
Appreciate it. Now, this is a conversation that we are having constantly here in Australia. We heard from our spy boss just a couple of weeks ago that foreign interference is a bigger problem than he's ever faced, or his agency has ever faced. And he put Cold War, he put Islamic terrorism on that list. If you could just kind of encapsulate the problem, not just for Australia, but for the Western world when it comes to China's dominance, how would it be? How would you describe that?
Well, would you like me to speak about it broadly or cyber specific?
Let's go broad, then let's go cyber specific.
Check. So, look, a strong China is not necessarily a bad thing. The challenge is, how does a strong China integrate itself into the broader global community in which it respects the rule of law as well as the norms of behavior that we've developed over the last 70 years. If you look at what they're doing in the South China Sea, if you look at what they're doing with the Uyghurs and some of their own domestic population, and if you look at the way they have been stealing intellectual property, look at the way they have used cyber as a tool to do that, as well as potentially influence or disrupt, and you see behaviors, I think, that just really are of concern. And I think the challenge for all of the nations around the world is, how do we address that? Even as we acknowledge that we want China to be a strong member of the global community around us.
There have been improved relations and, our trade depends on it, essentially, between Australia and China. We all know Australia's reliance on China. Diversification is something that's talked about often, but I think that's very hard to do and it takes quite some time. How exactly is Beijing using this improved relationship to their advantage?
Well, look, first, it is a positive that Australia and China are talking to each other. I think that's a positive thing. We shouldn't view that as inherently negative. My only point is, even as dialogue is increasing, we should not believe that that automatically means China will change its behavior in areas like its use of cyber to intrude in both governmental systems within Australia as well as within the private sector. I just don't assume that the one automatically leads to the other would be my input.
When we're talking about this in a retail sense, we talk about TikTok a lot, and not to diminish that, but I think TikTok and the concerns around that really bring this problem home to the public. I know US federal government agencies have banned the app on their employees' phones. We've done a similar thing here with some agencies. Just how pervasive is this simple, fun app?
Well, I mean, it's broadly used around the world. I have family members that use it, for example. I do not. And it's widely deployed. And I think the real issue here is, what level of comfort do we have with a foreign nation's potential ability to access a wide range of cyber-associated information that is provided by users for a simple purpose like, hey, we want to make videos and share with family members and friends. And that information may be used by others. Remember, in fairness to TikTok, China's net law requires any Chinese corporation to execute a government order to provide any information or access purely on the basis of national security. And unlike Australia and the United States, where a private entity could appeal that ruling, if you will, or that direction to a court, or could go to a legislative branch. In the Chinese system, that alternative kind of review just doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I would say that it's not used in China. TikTok, it's used everywhere else but China, I would say. Now, I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't talk about foreign interference interfering in democratic elections in a real serious way, something that happened broadly and could flip elections. But as the years wear on and we see how sophisticated this interference, this spying is, it is a real risk, and it's not always immediately clear. Do countries like Australia and America have a proper hold on this?
Well, the good news is I think there's wide recognition of the challenge. Having said that, the challenge then becomes, okay, so what do you do to make sure that your processes like elections and other things cannot be impacted by foreign intrusions? The technical piece is much simpler. The harder part to me is in a democracy which is dedicated to the idea of freedom of speech and the free movement and exchange of information, how do you keep that while also dealing with the fact that there are nation states around the world who are using technology and misinformation and disinformation, the manipulation of images, facts, to provide a distorted, quote, reality or alternative? How do we deal with the fact that that exists?
Any ideas?
Well, I say a couple of things. Number one, the providers, the host of these platforms, they have an important role. Governments aren't going to be able to do this by themselves. I also think we as citizens have an important role here. We have got to stop believing everything just because we either see an image or we read something online. Just because you see something doesn't mean it's automatically true. And yet that's how we've been conditioned over time.
This might be a bit of a, basic suggestion, but from where I sit, banning anonymous accounts and needing to register a Twitter account, a Facebook account, a TikTok account with proper ID seems like that might be a good and easy course of action.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say the providers, the host of these platforms, have a significant role to play. Because we want to make sure we understand the true identity of who it is that we're seeing that's pushing whatever the particular information or agenda is we're looking at. And then the second challenge is, how do we make sure that the data or the assertion they're making is factual, is true?
Well, Admiral Michael Rogers, it was great to talk to you this morning. I'm definitely going to put you on speed dial. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.